Just like that, we are live with Matt Walker. Matt, welcome to closing day of the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having
me. Matt, for our listeners of Closing Day, we usually do a quick intro so they've heard some about you, but if you just wanted to tell them a little bit about yourself, and we're always curious about how people land in the Big Sky State and where you're at now and what you're up to.
Yeah. So Matt Walker, I live here in Big Sky, Montana, and live here with my wife for about 6 years. I grew up in Indiana, and my parents had lived in Montana when they were young and right out of college. And so eventually jobs took them back to the Midwest, and they were both teachers. And so every summer they would bring us kids out to Montana, and really we'd spend most of our time kind of around Yellowstone, in and around Yellowstone, fishing, camping, hiking. Didn't really spend a lot of time in Big Sky, but so I grew up kind of coming out here, and then in college I knew I wanted to get out of Indiana one summer, and so I moved out here with my older brother, who had also come to Montana and worked in Big Sky. And I interviewed at a couple places and got a really awesome job as an outdoor guide. And
Nice.
So I did that for the next couple of summers while I was in school, and then graduated, moved out here full time. And so that was 2012. And since then, I've moved out of the guiding gig, and now I do real estate full time.
That's awesome. That's really cool. And so when you say, for a lot of our listeners, they might be in that home buying stage where they haven't bought a house, they've been renting, and they're looking to make that first jump. So can you help our listeners understand sort of how you went from, an outdoor guide in Montana to becoming what sounds like a full-time real estate investor?
Yeah. So, I was kind of just living the life, doing the guiding thing, kind of living paycheck to paycheck, trying to figure out what my next, piece of gear that I needed to buy. When you live in Montana, you always need more gear, skis, bikes,
Always.
Kayaks, all that kind of stuff. And so what really, kind of switched gears in my mind was I got hooked into the Dave Ramsey program. And so I discovered Dave Ramsey when I was 25, and that was a whole big kind of mindset shift. And so ever since then, I've kind of been living along those kind of frugal means. We had a bunch of student debt that we had to clear. And so we kind of just, really got after it. Working a bunch of overtime, trying to get as much income as possible, and just living, super frugally, and just chipped away at our debt over, basically took 2 years to get out of the kind of the debt cycle. And then from there, we'd gotten married kind of during that point, and then knew we wanted to buy a place. So luckily we were able to start saving, got the 3 to 6 months worth of, emergency funds saved up, and then also got a little extra saved up to buy our first condo. And so we were living in a complex here in Big Sky, and our neighbor came to us and she said, I'm retiring at the end of the summer, I'm going to put my place on the market. She was just putting it on Facebook, and we're like, well, we're kind of looking at buying a place. Can we come take a look? And, got it under contract the next day.
Oh, wow.
And that was kind of our first, experience with the contract. I would say we looked a couple years prior to that at another unit. That was a really great deal. It needed a little bit of work here in Big Sky. And it was actually in our same complex. And that unit was listed for $155,000, same exact unit as what we bought basically 2 years later for about $245,000. So the market just went gangbusters in the last couple of years here in Big Sky. So really wish we would have gotten that first deal, but we weren't financially ready. there were renters that were living in it. And so we didn't really know kind of how to navigate that, aside from not really wanting to kick those folks out. And so we were looking at trying to do a 20% down as an investment property, and just did not have the cash to pull the trigger on that deal. So in hindsight, it was a good decision for us to pass on that. But we were able to get something a couple of years after that.
Yeah, it sounds like you didn't jump both feet in the deep end to start. Whereas my guess is if you were presented with that opportunity today, you'd probably move a little faster on it and just have some of the education built up. Okay, what do you do with a lease that's already signed on a property that you're looking to buy? And answer those types of questions, which could be an episode all in itself, I think.
Yeah, of course.
You mentioned like not financially ready, and some student debt. And I'm curious, how did you as a team sort of save up that 20% when it did come time to get that first condo?
Yeah. So, I mean, the number one thing was clearing our debt, and we didn't have any consumer debt, fortunately. I'd always kind of lived under the premise where, you don't really do credit cards. And so luckily I didn't have any of that. And my wife, fiance at the time, didn't have any of that either, luckily, but we did come into our marriage with about $50,000 worth of student loan debt. And so we just, kind of buckled down, and, we were able to raise our income a little bit, and we were getting, we worked seasonal jobs, or we were working seasonal jobs at the time. And so you kind of get, the end of season bonus, which always helped. We just kind of put that, everything we could towards the debt.
Yeah.
And we're able to pay that off.
Right.
We didn't buy a jet ski. No, we kind of stopped buying, ski gear and mountain bikes and that kind of thing. But yeah, just really wanted to kind of figure out what life was like after, debt. And again, the Dave Ramsey thing, really helped us kind of plan and prepare and execute that. So we were able to clear that, and then got the emergency fund. We kept along that plan, and then we were able to save up. Luckily, we were able to save up 20% to put down on the first property. Really wanted to avoid the PMI,
private mortgage insurance,
and just have as low of a monthly outlay as possible.
Yeah, I think that really helps. People, there's just a lot of financial advice when it comes to saving. Like, okay, skip the latte, but if you do that every day, it still doesn't quite add up to 20% on a down payment, especially in Montana. But it sounds like you guys, live below your means, and definitely took advantage of those bonuses, like you said, and over time, and just really compounded it into, okay, now we have this investment that we can make. We have this 20% down that we can put on a property. Quick question about condo versus like single family residence. Do you have any thoughts on that for a first time home buyer if they're looking to get into a place? Was that just out of necessity that sort of the condo in Big Sky, Montana was all the inventory that was available, or was that something that you and your fiance at the time sort of were seeking?
Yeah, I think it was more of just what the market had available. So here, in a resort town like Big Sky, the low hanging fruit was condo product. A single family home, in Big Sky, well, today now starts, kind of $600,000 to $700,000. So
yeah, there
was just no way to even go after a single family. And, we didn't need a big place. I think that's one of the big things that people get into is, like they come out of college and they try to live this lavish lifestyle like their parents have had, that have been working towards for, 30 or 40 years, and they want that right out of college. And so, it was nice to be able to save up that money. And also, once you have that down payment, I think that just mentally makes you be a little more cautious because you've worked so hard to save up that money, and just be a little more aware of what you're going to buy with that. So, we were able to luckily find, a good deal off market, like, just talking to our neighbor.
Yeah.
Our dogs played together. And so we'd always see this person in the backyard. Right. And she just said, I'm looking to sell. And so we were able to avoid realtor fees, which was also helpful too. But it was a pretty straightforward transaction. We got under contract. We did our inspection, and with a condo, you do have to underwrite and factor in the HOA, which is always one of the big issues that brings, that a condo offer brings. But you can get sometimes a lower price for what you need. But we did the inspection. There were a couple things that popped up on the inspection. Got those taken care of. We actually negotiated a little bit off the purchase price just because she didn't want to do any of the repairs.
Yeah,
so
that's
she's
cool.
like, I'll give you guys the money and you guys can just do it.
Oh, so you actually got like a check to do the work after you closed?
She factored it into to the closing. So we actually did an addendum to the purchase and sale agreement to take that money off. It was not very much money, but
sure. Hey, but at the time it probably mattered.
I think we negotiated like maybe $1,000 or so.
Yeah. I always put it into perspective, like $1,000 is how many hours of, overtime at the job I'm currently working. And yeah, on a purchase price of 240, it's a small percentage, but in real time, it's your time, right? So it matters at that stage in your life for sure, or any stage for that matter.
Yeah. We didn't negotiate the actual purchase price. She's like, the price is the price, and she put it up on Facebook, and I've already in the last 24 hours had, 10 or 12 different inquiries. And so we're like, well, I guess it's a decent deal. Kind of looked at, gave her the number. And so that's how we did the contract.
That's awesome. So the moral of the story is get a dog, take it to the local dog park, and just ask everyone about real estate deals. I think that's the advice that you're trying to give.
Exactly.
No, that's really helpful.
You should have a dog anyways, really, but yeah.
Just have a dog. Yeah. Save a dog, go rescue a dog. Right. So when we talk about, you didn't use a realtor, I think some people might listen and say, well, how exactly does that work? And so can you just walk people through how you had the confidence to walk through this without somebody in your court? Like, are you is there something that we don't know? Are you a lawyer? Or did you have a lawyer on your team, or walk through that for us?
Yeah, great question. So that situation is not for everyone. Someone, sometimes you just need somebody to kind of hold your hand through that process. And real estate agent is a great person because they know how to manage that process really well. I was fortunate because I had already been working in a brokerage here in Big Sky. And so I was able to access the MLS forms through my work and present the offer and have my broker look it over before we presented and then execute that way. So kind of a unique situation. Not for everybody. I don't recommend everybody, but you could have a lawyer take a look at it, but just somebody that knows something about how to fill out the contract. The MLS contracts are fairly straightforward, but there are certain things that you can put in there to tailor it one way or another towards the buyer side or seller side.
Yeah. So just wondering why, as a buyer, I guess if you're confident with the forms, like that makes total sense. But did you ever think, well, hey, it's not me, since I'm the buyer, it's not me paying sort of the commission, the 6% or whatever it might be to a realtor. So why not have someone in your court? I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, great question. I think, we were almost just naive at that point and didn't really know what we didn't know. which is also something I think that holds people back sometimes just from executing, is they try to get all the information. But yeah, I mean, I don't think we were looking at it from, kind of the nitty gritty. We just saw a good deal and just wanted to lock it up as fast as possible because we knew that there was a lot of other interest out there.
Cool. And then you went from Condo 1 to now a real estate investor, and talk about how that evolved. And did it happen immediately? Did you just kind of catch the bug? Or I'm really curious about how someone goes from sort of first-time home buyer to now a professional real estate investor.
Yeah, still trying to figure out how that happened, but really what we did is we got our place and just started kind of, squirreling away money and saving up money. And it was a little over a year ago. I was talking with one of my developer buddies who does development in Bozeman. And I said, I kind of started thinking about doing some real estate investment. He's like, well, you got to listen to this thing called Bigger Pockets. And I had never heard of Bigger Pockets before. And that was really kind of the spark that we needed. So that was the best thing that ever happened to us. We started listening to the podcast, using their website, doing the rental calculators, and basically just got the bug to kind of take what we had been doing with Dave Ramsey, but now kind of up a notch and doing more investing in a different way. And really, I'd been working in real estate now for the last, 4 or 5 years, and really like the industry and can see the potential, for real wealth and a great lifestyle. And so kind of just took that and tried to learn as much as possible, listen to a bunch of podcasts. And I partnered with 2 of my friends here in the area that were also interested in doing some investment. And we were able to get some resources together to purchase our first deal. We closed on our first rental property basically a year ago in December 21st. And we got kind of lucky with that one as well. We found that deal on Zillow and just got the Zillow alert and called up the agent and said, hey, we're interested. And we got an offer in and got under contract within a couple of days.
Very nice. Yeah, that's you hear mixed reviews on Zillow, so it's kind of cool to hear a success story about this property popped up and there it was. I have a question about Dave Ramsey versus sort of the Bigger Pockets real estate philosophy. A lot of the Bigger Pockets, and for those unfamiliar, it's sort of a real estate investing community, and a lot of people talk about leveraging properties, taking equity out of the current home that you own or other properties, which if you also listen to Dave Ramsey, he's a real proponent of, maybe 100% or pay off your entire mortgage before thinking about sort of house number 2 or before thinking about the jet ski, like zero debt. So I'm just curious what do those compete in your mind, or has your philosophy evolved beyond sort of the pay down your home mortgage?
Yeah, they compete pretty much every day.
Yeah,
I feel like I have Dave Ramsey on one shoulder and I got, Bigger Pockets on the other shoulder kind of saying, hey, this is what you should do. But I think, the biggest thing where they differ in their philosophy is just the thinking around debt. And, Dave is all about getting debt out of your life. I was all about that until we started trying to buy a house. And we couldn't qualify for a mortgage because I didn't have a debt score or a credit score. So I had paid off, all of our student loans, and it had been enough time where I didn't have a credit score. My wife luckily still had a student loan that her father was helping to pay off. So it was actually active and open. And without that, we would have not been able to really kind of progress where we wanted to go, because having that line of credit, I was then able to have her apply for a credit card, and then I piggybacked off of her credit card and got my own credit card because I couldn't open up my own credit card. And so we started from there, and then we were able to kind of build up our credit over time, and then finally we're able to qualify for a mortgage. So yeah, I mean, Dave definitely got us to a point, and then the no credit score is a really kind of difficult thing to work around. He recommends, some lenders that will work with you to try to figure out other ways to get a loan on a house, but it's much more difficult without a credit score. So I think that's the biggest thing is, in today's world, credit is a useful thing, and it plays a big part in our lives. And unfortunately, you just have to figure out a way to maximize the benefit. So, and then, Bigger Pockets talks, about using debt, in a smart way to leverage your situation. So, why wouldn't you go chase, money that's at, 3, 4, 5, 6%, and only put down, low down payments to go buy a house that you can then, house hack, rent out, live in, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest thing is the difference between those two philosophies. So I still struggle, do I put money towards, and pay off our own house? How cool would that be to have a, completely paid for, place to live and not have a mortgage payment at all? Or is that money better spent, leveraged and being able to put into more real estate deals and trying to, scale a business that way? So it's something I still, struggle with and think about every day.
Yeah. We sent a questionnaire to you, Matt, before this interview, and you'd mentioned one of your superpowers is, you're good with numbers. Like you can use spreadsheets to help calculate, in many ways, risk, which I think is what I hear you talking about when, those two competing things are sort of on one shoulder and the other. Being able to calculate and just look at a sort of overview. Okay, what would be the projected outcome of this decision? What would be the projected outcome of this decision? And for some, the thought of tenants is really scary to them, and whatever the numbers say, the risk of a 3 a.m. phone call is just not worth it for them, or the risk of vacancy is just not worth it, even if you factor those into your numbers. So am I right to say that you've got a pretty good understanding of being able to forecast those things?
Yeah, I mean, I think risk has a big part to play in whatever your decision you're going to make. It's kind of that, conservative side where, the Dave Ramsey wants you to, pay off all your stuff. And then it's the other side where Bigger Pockets is like, well, you can build this incredible life and have all this wealth by buying, rental properties and just trying to figure out, how you navigate where you want to go. And I think having the goal in mind is a big part of it. What do you want out of your life? For me personally, I want to be my own boss. I want to, have enough passive income coming in where, I can go and do other endeavors, whether that's, brokerage, real estate, property management, personal finance, what have you. But I just know that, I want to get to a point where I can have enough passive income coming in to do other things and not be tied down to a 9-to-5 job. I mean, for us, playing with the numbers is a big thing. I think in just going with your gut, we know the market, pretty well here in our area. Big Sky and Bozeman, are exploding markets. They're expensive markets, but we know that there's opportunities and there's a huge housing shortage problem in the area. And so we knew that if we could just get, a couple rentals, that we'd have no problem renting them. Bozeman is a little different market just because it's a little more competitive. And you got to be a little more price conscious on your rental revenue and all your other underwriting. But we've had success with it. And, we didn't really know, I guess, what the landlord lifestyle was going to be. Luckily, kind of knock on wood, we haven't run into, the 3 a.m. phone call and, replacing, broken toilets and all that kind of thing. We are self-managing all of our properties right now because we can't afford really to hire a property management company yet. And hopefully, we'll get there at some point. But really, it's just, trying to stay organized and being good landlords. And the calls that we do get, we try to answer right away. And so it can be a scary thing, but at the same time, we've built our business around long-term rentals because we know what short-term rentals can do to a market. And in our 2 areas that we've been investing in, they really kind of decimate the affordable housing situation. So we've tried to build a business around long-term rentals and just providing housing to the community so workers can come and live here full time.
That's great. And for those who don't know, short-term rentals, are you talking about vacation rentals, things like that?
Yeah. Short-term rentals, Airbnb, VRBO. We looked at it. We could make way more money than what we're currently making, but at the same time, we don't want to, have to go in and clean every 3 days. We don't want to have to, flip hot tubs and manage all those bookings and that kind of thing. So just sticking with the long-term rentals for now.
Yeah. No, I think that's really cool. I think it's cool to have a niche or just a lane that you're staying in. It sounds like your team has found one that they're really comfortable with. So kudos. I think it's time, Matt, for closing time, where we ask you a couple questions that we try to ask every guest. Usually there's some variation in the questions. It has been kind of inconsistent, and that's sort of on purpose on my side. But I'm really curious about kind of the worst real estate advice you've ever received. Have you ever gotten really bad real estate advice? You're like, well, that, I think I want to ignore that.
I think the worst real estate advice that I don't know if I've received firsthand, but I've just heard people give is that the market's too expensive and I'm just going to wait. I saw this thing recently. It's a great quote. It's like, I don't wait to buy real estate. I buy real estate and wait. So I think, just taking action and just, trying to figure out, I invest in, really expensive areas and it's not always easy. We've had to raise a little bit of money from friends and family. But just figuring out a way, to get your first deal, whether that's, a rental property or, a personal residence, just getting something just to get in the game. And from there, you can go, take it to whatever level you want.
Yeah. I think that's bad advice on their part and good advice on your part. So I hear it a lot here as well in Missoula. Like, I'm just going to kind of sit on the sidelines and hold off, and you can wait a long time in doing that. What piece of advice would you have, and this might sort of build on what you just said, but what advice would you have for a first-time home buyer? So never owned, is renting right now, or maybe living with their folks or some friends, and just thinking about, it seems like a big leap. Like, how do I get started? What piece of advice would you have for them?
Yeah, kind of two things there. I think you have to get organized with your money. So the biggest thing you can do is a budget. And, that's a 4-letter word to a lot of people, but I think you have to get serious. If you're going to try to get involved in real estate, that's, going to be the biggest purchase probably of your life, and you don't want to take it lightly. And so I think to do that, you have to get smart with your money. And so setting up some sort of budget and savings plan can really put you in a position to, make great things happen. So that's probably what I would say. And then from there, I think just educating yourself as much as possible, with the market, figuring out, you can look at Zillow and realtor.com and all that kind of stuff to figure out what kind of deals are out there. So you can learn the market and figure out when a good deal comes up that you want to jump on. And then really, I think the first step is trying to figure out how much house you can afford. And so you don't want to bite off more than you can chew. Be conservative. You don't want, your entire paycheck going to your mortgage. That's just not a good place. You don't want to be house poor, as Dave Ramsey says. So I think talking to a lender, getting pre-approved, is probably the best thing that you can do to start off, aside from getting organized with your money.
Cool. Yeah, I think that's really great advice. Any financial literacy books? It sounds like you're a big Dave Ramsey fan, but would you recommend his book or any other books that you recommend for folks who are in those shoes, thinking about a budget, haven't created one yet, just wanting to get into a home?
Yeah, the main one is The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. Kind of just outlines the 7 baby steps that you follow. It's a pretty simple process, and it's pretty powerful once you put it in action. So that book was great, kind of starting off. I recently read The Richest Man in Babylon, which is a really fantastic book. Older book, but has some great principles in there. And then really anything on Bigger Pockets. All of their books are fantastic. Just picked up Set for Life by Scott Trench.
Cool.
So really excited to dive into that.
Awesome. And Matt, partner at the Gallatin Capital Group. You guys have a website we can link up?
We do not.
No website.
We own the domain, but we do not have the website up and running yet.
Maybe an Instagram account. So if people want to find out more about it,
we have an Instagram account.
Okay, direct message on Instagram. Is that how to get a hold of you?
Perfect. Yeah, Gallatin Capital Group.
Cool. All right, we'll make sure to link that up in the show notes. Matt, thanks a lot for your time today. I could talk to you for a lot longer, I feel like, but I think our listeners have a lot to learn here, and they can reach out if they have any more questions, or also if they have any deals that they're looking to send your way if you're in the Montana, area code here. So thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the time. It was awesome.
Cool. All right.